Okay. So good morning, leaders. Good morning, HASA, or Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board members. This is our April 15th Housing Stability Strategic Advisor meeting. For those who celebrate, we wish you a blessed Passover weekend. We also wish Mubarak Ramadan, my gosh, I can't even say that, Mubarak Ramadan to our Muslim friends. Since we didn't have a meeting early April, we know that Ramadan flows through all of April until May 1st. My name is Daryl Watson, and I'm the chair of HSSA, HASA, or the Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board. I try to start our meeting a little bit to give folks a little bit of time to sign in as far as board members. So let me give about a minute before I do a roll call, just to ensure that we have not only the members of the community that want to join us, and maybe jumping from another virtual meeting to this meeting, and also the board members. So I'll do roll call in just about 1 minute at 10:02. So thank you all for joining. So board members, if you are on the call, if you don't mind unmuting, I'll just do a roll call. I'll call through the names. I've received a response back that I believe two board members are traveling and not able to be on the call this morning, but let me go through each of the names. And if you are here, just say present or here. So Mayra Gonzalez, Kuika Montoya, Josh Geppelt, and Sabrina and Katie. If I'm missing folks, if they are on but they're not speaking or they're on mute, please let me know. I know Maria is traveling. Silverda, I don't know if you're on. Randy Kilborn, Jenny Rogers, Melanie Lewis.
Hi, Daryl, I'm here.
Hey, Melanie, thanks for being the first one to be here. Kristen Toombs, Marsha Brown. And
I'm present.
Marsha, good to see you. And Thomas Allen.
Katie, it looks
Now,
like Clara might be on as an attendee, just getting promoted to panelist. So I just wanted to let you know that it looks like Myra might be on.
Okay, good. So we're gonna move to public comments, but then I'm gonna come back and check and see which board members are on and see if we have a quorum to approve the minutes after public comment. So as Katie and Sabrina are checking folks who are maybe being promoted to the presenter line, we'll come back and do public comments, and then Laura, I'll turn it over to you for brief remarks from host and from the director's office. Thank you all, and I want to apologize for folks. I am meeting remotely. The office that I'm in, we don't have access to wireless, so I'm on my hotspot. So I've chosen not to do video because it will kick me off early and frequent, and I didn't want the disruption. So I do apologize for not having my video on. So for public comments, I want to thank you neighbors for attending this meeting. You have 3 minutes to discuss any topic. Hopefully the topic is specific to the work that we do here within HSSA or within the Department of Housing Stability. We want to thank you for not making a comment specific to any board member or staff member of host. And as always, let's keep it clean. Let me turn it to Katie. Are there any members of the public that are raising their hands that are interested in making a 3-minute public comment?
I don't see anybody with a hand raised, but everybody who's on should have the ability to unmute themselves and speak if they would like to.
Well, as my
Also,
husband, a 30-year-old 30-year career. Teacher does, it gives the teacher pause. This is the teacher pause for folks who would like to jump in. And I think I stepped on someone, so I'll go back on mute and see if someone wants to jump in and make a comment.
And if you're having any trouble, please also feel free to use the Q&A that's at the bottom of the screen, and we can answer you there as well.
Seeing and hearing no one, you also throughout the meeting can, actually, I'm not sure if comments are available for you to place comment, but you can do the Q&A as Sabrina and Katie spoke to. Sabrina, Katie, are there any board members that we need to advance to the presenter line? Just so I can make sure I have a quorum. At this moment, we do not have a quorum.
So we had Kristen and Myra join since you did roll call. And I'm not seeing anybody else that hasn't been moved over yet.
So being a parliamentarian, I'm going to suspend the rules for the need of a quorum for minutes. We won't approve the minutes until the end of the meeting. I'll come back to the end, but I at least wanted to see for the members of the board that are on the call, if you have any questions about the minutes that Katie sent over, and that was sent over with the agenda and the other information for today's call. If you're a member of the board, if you don't mind unmuting, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Hearing and seeing none, know that at the end of the meeting, I will call for a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Since we suspended the rules, we do not need the seven board members in order to vote and approve the minutes. So we'll move forward on our agenda, and I'll love to ask Laura, if you'd like to provide a director update for the Department of Housing Stability.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I have to say, Daryl, I have noticed a number of our team members doing the teacher pause after you've been talking about it. It's been lovely. So thank you for inspiring us. It's been a helpful addition to meetings. I've noticed lots of us doing it. Britta sends her regrets and apologies that she was not able to make today's meeting. So wanted to just give a couple of updates for some things that are happening in the Department of Housing Stability. We've got a lot of movement on great, exciting things. I want to give you a few updates on today. First and foremost, you can see here we have the Home American Rescue Plan resources. This is about $11 million that we had approved in this resource home from the American Rescue Plan Act that was approved last year. We had to put together an allocation plan for the Department of Housing and Urban Development on how to expend those resources. We held 2 stakeholder meetings to help inform that allocation plan, and then a public hearing last Wednesday to take comment on the plan, which closed as far as its comment period last Friday. So that plan, with the engagement that was conducted over the previous weeks, is now finalized, and it's posted on our House America page on our website, which, Katie, if you could help me to pop that in the chat so that people have access to that. Wanted to just let you know that we got robust feedback on that, and that plan is now finalized. So it's available for your view if you have any feedback, but thank you to all the team members and all of those who commented on that plan so that we can start spending those resources, which is really exciting. Another big announcement I just wanted to make sure that this group was aware of is the approval of the general obligation bonds for the RISE program, which this is a very, very exciting thing for us, because this is the first time our agency has utilized general obligation bonds to support a housing or shelter purpose, and the first time the city at large has utilized this tool for this purpose since 1977. So this is very exciting. We had $38.6 million that were approved for housing and shelter uses at City Council on Monday night. We have a few projects that are being supported with this resource. The first is the purchase of a men's shelter facility at 4600 East 48th Avenue. It's operated in partnership with the Denver Rescue Mission. That's $7.4 million of the total package that was approved on Monday for housing and shelter. We also have two non-congregate shelter projects that are being supported with these resources. One is the Urban Peak Mothership. It's a new youth shelter. $16 million of the general obligation bonds will support that project, which there was also some recent announcements around this project from the congressional earmark support from Congresswoman DeGette, $3 million of federal funds that are supporting this project as well. It will expand from what is now 35 beds to 136 beds at a new facility as this is constructed, which will include a medical clinic on site, as well as a commercial kitchen with opportunities for work for the youth that are also served at the shelter. Volunteers of America was the third but second non-congregate facility that is being supported with these resources. $12.2 million in general obligation bonds from this program will support a total of 52 units at a new facility to serve families. So this is about a doubling of their current capacity. There is also a supportive housing project that is on the northeast corner of this property that is funded separate from the non-congregate shelter, but there was a press conference located at the Volunteers of America site that will be approved through this general obligation bond. And again, these are just really exciting projects that we're very happy to see moving forward with the use of this tool and this funding mechanism. On the expanding housing affordability project, which I know we had an update with this group recently on, we have seen some movement on the actual approval of this policy. The policy was in front of Planning Board on April 6th. The hearing was several hours long. There were many good questions, and I want to specifically give a shout out and thanks to Daryl, who was there to represent HSSA as part of that hearing. Thank you, Daryl. The next steps on this are that we are going to the Land Use and Transportation and Infrastructure Committee on April 19th to formally move forward changes to the Denver Revised Municipal Code that will make the complementary to the zoning code changes to make this policy possible within DRMC. So these both will be moving forward in May 2nd for the zoning code map amendment, and then May 23rd again for first reading at City Council. We'll reach out with more information and specific dates on how to be involved in this over the coming weeks, but we would certainly encourage you to speak during public comment on both the zoning and the DRMC changes as they come forward through City Council. And again, we'll send you more specifics as we get a little closer to those dates. So excited to see EHA and this multi-year public policy process moving forward for approval. And then finally, on the policy front, we have the prioritization policy. Thank you again to those who attended stakeholder meetings in March. We've been holding additional meetings with stakeholders to really get a little bit of additional feedback, specifically from market rate developers. We had a few meetings already, and we have another one here in April on the 20th. And then we will have a public meeting on this prioritization policy on Wednesday, May 11th at 5:30. We can send that information out to this group, and maybe some of these dates, Katie, if we could pop in the chat just so folks have awareness of some of the immediate opportunities on both EHA as well as prioritization. We'll be sending information out more broadly to stakeholders as part of our end of month newsletter. So please, as you see that note come forward, share across your networks to ensure that we're getting that information distributed across the networks of this group, and really building public understanding and public support for this as we prepare for a City Council process later this spring into summer. And then on our next slide, wanted to just make a couple of announcements around some really exciting groundbreakings where we have new projects bringing affordable units to those who need them in our community. So very excited to have groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, and just a shout out and thanks to all of the team who have helped for, in some cases, many years to make these projects possible. Thank you. The persistence is so appreciated to get these projects out and available units. So Pancratia Hall was one of the first projects here that staff celebrated in person. That's the picture you see here. A grand opening is scheduled for this project on May 12th. This is located in the Loretto Heights redevelopment on South Federal. It includes 72 units of affordable housing. Each of the units have unique layouts to complement the character of the building. It's a really, really interesting project. It's very cool if you want to look into it a little bit further, but there's 25 units at 80% AMI, 4 units at 70% AMI, 25 units at 60% AMI, and 18 units at 30% AMI. Department of Housing Stability provided a $3.3 million cash flow loan to help with the restoration of this property, and we're very excited to see these units become available. The next one here is Rose on Colfax. This is located at 1500 Valencia on East Colfax. 82 units of affordable housing on site, as well as an early childhood education center. It will be on the former site of a blighted strip club. So we are excited to see affordable housing moving into this site. They will range from 30 to 70% AMI, which is about $28,000 to $65,000 for a family of 3. The city of Denver donated this parcel for the project. It was worth about $1.4 million. It was, I guess, sold, but we contributed the value of it towards the project. We sold it for $10, so contributed the majority of that $1.4 million to the project as an additional subsidy, and then supplied a $3.5 million loan and more than $15 million in private activity bonds for the development of this project, which is really a historic commitment for a single project from all of these different tools, and is very exciting to see this project moving forward. Finally, Clara Brown Commons is the first of a 2-phase project. This first phase will result in 61 total units for families and households with 28 2-bedroom units and 19 3-bedroom units. So really excited to see more family housing coming forward as part of this. All of the units are affordable at or below 80% AMI, with most of them 84% available to those earning below 60% AMI, and the majority the remainder available to those who are earning below 30% AMI. We contributed about $1.8 million to this project, and it's taking up really a full city block bordered by 37th and 38th, York and Gaylord in the Cole neighborhood. So excited to see this one moving forward for a groundbreaking. Happy to answer any questions you may have about those updates on either the policy side or on the project side. But again, thank you to all of the team members, all of the community partners, and all of the development partners who really have helped to move these projects and these policies forward. These are exciting next steps as an agency as we implement our strategic plan. So I'll pause and see if there are any questions on any of those projects or updates before we move on in our agenda.
We have a raised hand. Let me see. Okay, Bernice, I think you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. This is Berenice Garcia Tejes with CASAR office. I wonder if I can have more details on these new developments, because we're looking for pilots to have more energy efficient equipment for HVAC units and water heating, and there are incentives. So if any of these 3 projects would like to collaborate, I'm going to put my information on the chat, and I'm happy to talk further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Yep, we'll follow up.
Great.
Are there any other comments for Laura? Questions? First and foremost, Laura, I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you to hosts for all of the great work that has been done on the policy side with EHA moving forward. We know that that was a pretty comprehensive community-informed process. And we appreciate the thoughtfulness and work that you've done. The prioritization plan as well, we felt that that is was one of the missing pieces, at least from my perspective, in the dialogue around affordability and displacement, and really for the thoughtful, once again, process that that host, community, and CPD has led. We really want to applaud and demonstrate our appreciation for you. And Clara Brown Commons is very, in particular, is very important for folks on the east side And I appreciate that it's going forward. So let me stop and see if there are any other board comments or questions for Laura. Hearing or seeing none, I see that we now have a quorum of the board. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting. And if a board member will come off mute and say, so moved.
So moved.
That was Marcia. And is there a second?
I'll second. It's Melanie.
Thank you for moving, Marcia, and seconding Melanie. Any questions concerning the board minutes? And the one thing I always encourage board members to look at is if you're listed absent and you weren't, if there's a comment saying Melanie said this and Melanie didn't. So let's take a moment, look at the minutes, and then I'll ask, I'll do roll call as far as approval of the minutes. So I'll give you just 1 minute to review, see if there are any changes necessary, any questions folks have, and then we will move to roll call and approval of the March minutes. Seeing and hearing no one asking any questions, making any changes. If board members don't mind coming off of mute, and I'll just go through each name. Myra, do you approve the minutes?
Yes, approved.
Kuika, I do not believe you're on. Josh.
Approved.
Randy. Not sure if Randy's on. I know Maria is not on. Jenny. I don't think Jenny's on. Melanie.
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Marsha. Marsha, are you on mute?
Yes.
And Thomas.
Yes.
And Daryl approves as well. The motion has passed. The minutes from March have been approved. I look forward to bringing forward the discussion around homelessness resolution pillar. And I know there are some staff members from HOST that are here to present information on the homelessness resolution pillar. So please, I'll turn it over to HOST staff.
All right, thanks so much, Daryl. So that will be me leading our presentation today. My name's Angie Nelson. I'm our Deputy Director of Housing Stability and Homelessness Resolution. So last month, you got to hear from our Director of Housing Stability, Melissa Toddy, about the incredible work that she's leading with her team to help keep folks in the homes they have. And today, you'll hear from me and part of the discussion, we have our leadership team related to homelessness resolution work to be able to speak to the good work that we're leading to try and quickly resolve episodes of homelessness when they occur. So just a quick introduction for everyone of kind of who are those leaders in the homelessness resolution work for HOST. If we can go to the next slide. We have 4 folks who are leading distinct lanes of work in this effort. So Chris Connor, who many of you have known over the years, he's been part of our team at Denver's Road Home, was appointed to direct that work prior to coming over to HOST, and has now taken a position leading our system strategy. So really helping us to look at innovations, what's working in other municipalities, how can we bring new ideas forward that are going to help us to achieve the big audacious goals that we've set in our strategic plan. We also have Jared Powell, who is taking some well-deserved time off today. He's our Director of Shelter System Operations. So this is a position that's really focused on the network of shelters that we have, both that the city owns or leases, and some of the nuances and needs around being the owner or the landlord, if you will, for some of these large facilities. And so Jared serves as a point of contact between a lot of those other city offices, so real estate and transportation and infrastructure and facilities management, to make sure that we are being a good partner in the operations of those buildings. But then he's also a central role in helping to ensure that all of these disparate shelter programs are working together as a system. And so when we have cold weather, when we have spikes in utilization, that we're able to flex and move as a system to accommodate everyone who's seeking shelter and meet those needs in our community. Next, we have Midori Higa, who is our Director of Homelessness Resolution Programs. So this position oversees a big portfolio of contracts. As you know, most of our work at Host is done in partnership. And so we contract with a variety of homeless service providers to provide programs ranging from, street outreach and shelter to transitional housing, employment programs, and supportive housing. And so Midori and her team oversee that work. They've also built some responsibility into having a focus on really improving the housing outcomes from these programs we contract with. And so Midori and team have been the lead on our housing surge. We are about a month away from wrapping up our second housing surge. The first one, we supported around 340 households into permanent housing. And so far, I think we're somewhere around 154. Maybe Midori, you could give an update in a little bit about where we're at with this current housing surge, but essentially just coordinating and working to get folks into housing. And then finally, I want to introduce our newest member of the Host team. She's been with us. This is day 5 for her, but Leanna Dalton, who is our new Director of Unsheltered Homelessness Response. So this is a new lane of work that we've built out on the team as the early intervention team came to Host. And as we were approved in the 2022 budget to double the size of the early intervention team and provide more support from a homeless services lens to the city's encampment response, as well as building out some direct positions related to behavioral health navigation. And so Leanna is a licensed clinical social worker and has spent the past 10 plus years sort of working at these intersections of homelessness, behavioral health, and public safety, coming from the Salt Lake City, working in the police department and the mayor's office, to most recently, she was in the City of Aurora homelessness response. And so we're really fortunate to have Leanna joining our team and very excited about the leadership she'll be bringing. So just wanted to make sure that you all had the opportunity to know these are really the folks who are doing the lion's share of the work and the leadership for their teams to ensure that we can deliver on these big goals that we have. So speaking of big goals, I'm going to overview for everyone kind of the impact statement that we have. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the impact we hope to have through our homelessness resolution team is that residents will experience homelessness rarely. And if they do, it is brief and one time. We advance this mission through various programs and policies, and similar to other lanes of work within Host, work to do it with a key focus on equity, noting that experiences of homelessness are where we see some of the starkest disparities around overrepresentation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So at the next slide, I'm going to just go through a brief overview for you all of the primary goals that we've outlined in the strategic plan. None of this is new information to you all, but just want to root us in kind of what it is that we're hoping to accomplish as a team and as a community, really. So the first goal, a primary goal, which received a really high community rating in our feedback, unsurprisingly, is that we need to do more to address unsheltered homelessness. And so we've set some big goals, one being that by 2026, Host and its partners will reduce unsheltered homelessness by 50%. And we're setting that benchmark this year with the count, the 2022 point in time count number. And we'll measure that reduction year over year through that point in time count, so that by 2026, we've seen a 50% reduction. And we hope to accomplish that by increasing exits to housing for our outreach programs and our shelter alternative programs, such as tiny homes and safe outdoor space, safe parking. And again, setting that baseline in 2022 to target increases in housed outcomes by 2026. And then you'll see this theme recurring across the entire range of goals and strategies, but hoping to reduce the average length of time that someone spends unsheltered and experience homelessness to an average of 90 days. Just noting the extreme toll that unsheltered homelessness takes on folks' health and well-being, and wanting to work as a system to provide some significant reductions in that length of time. And then another key metric in this goal area is to reduce deaths related to environmental exposure to 0 by 2026. And so this is a particular metric provided to us by the Office of the Medical Examiner, and it is sometimes related to exposure from extreme cold, but more often exposure to extreme heat. And so working on strategies that can help to better support and safeguard folks staying unsheltered from those weather impacts. So moving on to the next goal, we have a goal to expand pathways to successful rehousing. We are the Department of Housing Stability, and we know that while there's incredible and important life-saving work to help provide basic needs for folks experiencing homelessness, while there is critical work that is done to help provide a more dignified experience within our shelters and within our programs, if all of that work doesn't lead to an outcome of housing, then we're not quite getting there in terms of what we are meant to provide. And so our second goal is expanding those pathways to rehousing. So first metric is that we're going to increase the annual number of households served in our rehousing and supportive housing programs from 1,800 to 3,000 by increasing our investment in those supportive housing and rehousing programs. We're going to ensure that at least 80% of households served in those programs increase or maintain income while enrolled, and upon exit, maintain housing for at least 1 year. So, you know, that it's not just enough to count that someone moved out to what we count as a successful exit, but holding ourselves accountable to these investments by ensuring that folks are well supported to maintain their housing. And then we have a special collaboration across the region, really, through the Built for Zero campaign, of which Melanie Lewis Dickerson is a leader, but working to match our housing resources to the number of veterans experiencing homelessness to reach what's called functional zero. So for veterans, so ensuring that the rate at which veterans are coming into an experience of homelessness in our community, that they're able to be quickly matched to resources and resolve that episode of homelessness. There's a lot of incredible work being done across the region and with our partners at the VA, as well as many of our nonprofit partners. And there's a wealth of resources, housing resources to serve veterans. And so engaged in this work of Built for Zero to help kind of prove out some of the systems and data driven solutions to help resolve homelessness for an entire population, and then working to apply that to additional populations as we go forward. So next slide, our third goal is to complete our shelter system transformation towards a rehousing focused shelter system. So we've spoken about, you know, many times that the silver lining of the public health crisis around COVID has for our shelter system has been kind of twofold. One, it brought together collaborative partnerships in a way that our shelter system hadn't really seen. So co-location of services, partners kind of coming together to operate shelters in a joint way. And it also accelerated our goals towards providing 24/7 shelters. So 2-3 years ago, our shelter system was largely overnight only, where guests would queue up at night to get on a bus or to be intaked into a shelter. And then they would be asked to leave for the day sometime in the morning, shuttled back downtown, for a meal, but not allowed to store their belongings and have that stability of knowing that they had a place to be and a platform from which they could engage with case managers and support services to get back on their path to self-sufficiency and towards housing. And so the additional resources provided through the federal government, through the city, throughout our COVID response has really allowed us to implement those 24/7 operations, and our incredible shelter partners have flexed and grown and expanded in really just incredible ways to accommodate the needs of folks who are in their facilities, throughout an entire day. But with that, so just having a 24/7 shelter system is not the end goal for us. The second piece that we really wanted to do in integrating that 24/7 approach was making sure that the system was geared towards rehousing. So yes, life-saving shelter and the crisis response of a safety net emergency shelter system is critical, and we have to do that. But what are those key investments, the positions, the types of services that we can provide to help make sure that shelter is not just a platform for staying alive, but it is a platform towards resolving your homelessness and being able to gain stability and permanent housing. And so a couple of the key metrics for that are that we're working to increase the benchmark for our shelter programs so that those exiting shelter are exiting to housing at least 40% of the time. And then also reducing that average length of time that sheltered residents experience homelessness. Currently, the average length of time is 172 days. We're looking to cut that almost in half down to that average of 90 days. All right, our fourth goal, and it's got the yellow star and the yellow highlighting because this was actually rated the highest by the community in terms of the feedback of what felt most important to our community that we really focus on improving. And so we have a big goal to improve our homelessness resolution system for families. In the media and in community conversation, I think much is made about individual experiences of homelessness or impact of encampments of individuals, on a neighborhood. But I think more often than not, families experiencing homelessness kind of fly under the radar. They're not as visible. They're not seen in those highly visible ways as individuals are. And because of that, a strong light hasn't been shown on the work that our partners are doing to resolve family homelessness or the glaring gaps that exist in that system. And so we're looking to work together with our community partners to increase the number of family households who exit shelter and outreach programs to housing from 25% up to 50% by 2026, and reduce that average length of stay or average length of an experience of homelessness from 156 days down to 90. And a lot of our strategies in this lane sort of revolve around points of access as well as increases of housing options for families. And then finally, our fifth kind of main goal area, or no, only 4, sorry. I'm gonna talk a little bit about our key priorities in our 2022 action plan. So, you know, the strategic plan outlines those big goal areas. The action plan is a little bit more of the how do we intend to do this year over year. So I'll review these and then we'll be open for questions and discussions. So a few things that we have in our 2022 action plan that I want to point out. One is that in 2022, we will house at least 1,400 households through our homelessness resolution program. So looking to see an increase immediately over the 1,300 baseline. Some of our key priorities for 2022 include supporting persons experiencing unsheltered homelessness by continuing to work with our partners to provide outreach that connects residents with resource and housing opportunities through programs like the Denver Street Outreach Collaborative and strategic outreach to large encampments. To increase support to residents staying in newly established encampments or smaller encampments, Host has expanded the early intervention team or the EIT, and that team provides connections to resources, support to obtain housing and other case management, shelter, or other temporary housing options. And again, that team's work is focused on smaller encampments with fewer than 5 tents or sleeping structures. To guide our efforts to address unsheltered homelessness in alignment with Denver's commitment to Built for Zero, Host will work with partners to collect real-time data quality data collection in HMIS for outreach and related programs in accordance with Community Solutions Built for Zero standards. To expand our housing options for residents experiencing homelessness through innovative financing structures, Host will work with partners to establish a new supportive housing program for high utilizers of the justice and healthcare systems who are experiencing homelessness through social impact bond funding. So that's a partnership that's getting ready to open in the coming months with Denver Health, Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and Mental Health Center of Denver to provide supportive housing for 125 high utilizers of both justice and healthcare systems. To better meet the diversity needs of residents, the diverse needs of residents experiencing homelessness who need safe and temporary options, Host is investing recovery funding in safe outdoor space, as well as safe parking, tiny homes, congregate and non-congregate shelter options. And to help make the system of shelter and services easier to navigate, we're working with our partners to identify opportunities to better define access points for shelter and services for both individuals and families. So with that, I am happy to turn it back to you, Daryl, to lead us in discussion.
Angie, thank you so much for that comprehensive review. I know that this work and this pillar is of great import to the Department of Housing Stability and your amazing team, as well as the individual leaders on the Housing Stability Strategic Advisors Board. We appreciate the work within the 5-year plan, and we understand the targets and goals for the action plan. I wanted to open it up to board members for additional questions of Angie or any of the leaders on her team. And I know, Masha, you placed a question in a comment in the chat. I'd love to elevate you to the room if you don't mind coming off of mute and asking the question directly of Angie, and then I'll go through the other board members and see what questions they have or comments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daryl. And I want to just extend the thanks for doing an amazing job as chair for this group. I also want to just recognize all of the work. My goodness, Angie, you guys are really, really impressive upon all of the things that, you really have listened. I think you guys have looked at every angle to try to resolve this homelessness issue. And I want to just say thank you for all of the hard work behind us. I mean, you rattle it off so easy. You make it look so easy. And I know it is truly not. I did have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. In your presentation, you said that your goal was to house 1,400 folks this year. Can you share with us where you're at currently with that goal?
So I don't know if any of my team, I saw Midori came off and may be able to speak to where we're at through the housing surge, but I think I would probably need a little bit of a deeper dive in our HMIS data to make sure that I can present that to you. But I'll let Midori speak to where we're at so far through this housing surge period, and then maybe we can do some work in the background to just pull from our other data sources, see where we're at.
Thanks, Angie. Hi, everyone. I'm Midori. Nice to meet you or see you if I haven't met you before. So our housing surge goal is to house 400 households. So that includes individuals and families in a period from February 1st, 100 days to, I think that's March 10th or 12th, or May 10th or 12th. So as of today, I pulled the data while Angie was talking and sharing. We have housed 256 households, and we're still waiting on an update for Monday from one of our programs. So it might be a little bit more, but that's where we're at right now. So optimistic that we'll meet our goals still. During our last surge, it wasn't until the very end where we saw that big push.
Awesome, fantastic. That was one of many questions I had, by the way.
Marcia, I just wanted
go
to
ahead,
let you know
Sabrina.
too, because I don't think Jennifer Bice is on today, but I know she would want to let you know that that's one of the things her team is working really hard on putting together is a dashboard that will actually show. Right now we have our affordable housing dashboard that's on our website, but they're working on the other side of the house so that we have all of our homelessness resolution data up live on our website so that you would be able to see that. So that will be coming, I think, later this year.
That is so, I'm on top of it, guys. Thank you so much for that response. My last question is, how are you notifying? Angie and your team, you had made mention in your presentation of all of these wonderful things that's coming along, the housing, the unsheltered, all the different goals that you have set. And, I'm constantly focused on how our individuals that's experiencing homelessness are notified, how we're getting the word out. Are we using different human services, that outreach? Are we looking at faith-based organizations? How are we getting this information to the ground level?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Marcia, and always appreciate. I think it's such a strength you bring to every conversation of making sure that we're staying central and how does this communicate and translate to the folks who really need this information. So I'm gonna let Sabrina speak to what we've been doing on our outreach and communication strategy so that folks who have needs for this information are getting it.
Thank you for that question. I love it when people are thinking about communications in general. So we do a lot of work to make sure that we're sending out newsletters and updates to all of our partners with all of the things that we're working on, as you know, but more intentionally, we do strategic communications plans for each of the strategies that are in our 2022 action plan. So we go through and we look at not every one of them, I guess, the ones that need communications, we look at them, we make some determinations, and then we have conversations about who our audiences are and who really need to know the different pieces of information. And then we think about how we're going to get that information to them. So it varies a little bit from program to program and different strategy to strategy. But we are really intentional. We actually have a template we use for our communications plans, and in it has people experiencing homelessness and people with lived expertise, and really trying to think about how are we getting this information to them. In addition to that, we are actually planning to meet sometime later this quarter with our outreach teams and our provider teams to find out from them what additional tools would be helpful to get them the information that they need in a way that the best ways that they can have that information in order to get it out. And then we're actually going to also be working to develop a full engagement plan for how we intend to do that with more lived expertise, people experiencing homelessness. And so I will definitely be reaching out, Marcia, to see if you'd be interested in sort of advising as we go through that, and anyone else who's interested. But it is something that we're taking very seriously and trying to think about how do we really bring people into the fold to give us input and feedback on what we're working on, but also to make sure they're aware of what resources and tools there are out there. And then just one last reminder that we do meet on a quarterly basis as part of the LIAL settlement requirements with people experiencing homelessness, so that we can both present new information to them, but mostly just hear from them about how things are and aren't working. And we incorporate that into all of our communications plans also.
Thank you, Sabrina, for that. Can I just recommend at this time, certainly you can always call on me to help in any arena that has to do with removing homelessness and the experience of that, period. So just know that that door is always open. I want to just recommend at Denver Human Services, they have a community network meeting that happens every month. And I know there's several meetings out there, but I want to encourage you to look at platforms of maybe videos where you can put tidbits out on, I don't know, whatever stations, Facebook, whatever the case may be. But it is critical. It is just critical that we get this information down to the individual, not the group of people that are representing people that are homeless, but to individuals, and we have to meet them where they're at. If that is a bulletin board at the library or whatever it is, I don't know, an announcement, ticker tapes, whatever you want to do, but we need to get this information to those individuals as quickly as possible. And so I'm just recommending that we tag on some of these already established meetings. Maybe we can just give a flyer. And yes, I love the emails that go out, but I can't stress enough how important it is to associate and get that information down to our individuals that's without social media and is just on the ground waiting for support.
Yeah,
Marcia, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for reminding us on the importance of communication and being within community and being where community is at. And Sabrina, if you do a final comment on that.
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, I really appreciate those specifics, Marcia. We do work really closely with a number of folks over at Denver Human Services, including their community engagement folks and their communications team. And I know they put things out in their newsletters. They did not know about that meeting, so I'll check into that. And we also work with the community navigators at the library pretty frequently. But one of the things we're really looking at is trying to have a better understanding of like what kinds of tools, like does social media actually get to people, or do we need to have handouts that are actually available? We've heard a lot that there's a little booklet that's how to find shelter that we used to hand out a lot, but it was really outdated. And so we're just looking at, is that the right tool, or do we need to have some other things in there? And we're really also thinking a lot about how can we overcome some of the perceived barriers people have to going to shelter by using some of those materials. So really thinking about, can we address some of the changes that have happened to transform the shelter system over the last couple of years in some of those materials to sort of help people understand, that shelters are 24/7 now, and they have laundry facilities available and things like that. So we'll be digging into that more and hopefully developing some new materials here in the next few months. And I really appreciate that support and all of your specific guidance. Also threw in the chat, and thank you, Angie, for reminding me, we did a lot of work earlier this year to develop a web hub that lives now on the main page of denvergov.org. So if you go to the main city webpage, used to be kind of hard to find the housing department, and then you had to find our resident resources, and it was a lot of digging to find a shelter page. So now if you're just on denvergov.org and you hover over community, you'll see housing and homelessness guide. And I popped that in the chat for you. And that guide was very specifically intended for people who were in housing crisis to be able to very quickly from the city's main homepage find eviction support, rent and utility assistance, but also to be able to find a shelter and the services that we have available that way. So we have put that out there and it's doing really well. We're looking at the numbers on that and it's done much better than our webpage was doing before. So excited about that new resource as well.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for providing that additional detail and looking at really how many folks are actually engaging with that website now that it has been moved and it's more visible. I wanted to share with folks, once again, I want to apologize for not being on video. I have a wireless that's not really strong. I'm using my hotspot. So I always feel uncomfortable when I'm facilitating a meeting and I'm hiding behind without my video on, but my apologies. Midori, I had a follow-up question for you, and then I wanted to go through some of the other board members and see what questions they have for Angie and the rest of the leaders. I know you spoke around the housing surge, and my question to you and the team, and it's not just simply to you, Midori, is how are you operationalizing the surge? So when I hear the surge, it sounds like an activity that you are doing, but not a this is the way it is. There has been phenomenal success from the first surge to now this second surge. If you can talk to us about the scaling of it so that it's no longer a surge, it's just simply how Host is doing business.
Yeah, I will try to answer all of those questions. So yes, the surge does involve action. It's not an idle activity of just like, oh, these people got housed by the normal course of action or work that we have. So in order for a surge to occur, generally there needs to be a surplus of resources, and that has very much happened with COVID response funding that we're still trying to carry out in our community. So operationally, we have a planning group that meets on Tuesdays. So we talk through like, what are the things that we're hearing are difficulties or problems to be solved? How do we want to create movement or stress solutions for our provider community? So really take the time to do that. And one of my staff, Galen Feeney-Coyle, is leading that effort now. And so she takes more time throughout the week to connect with different providers to see who might be able to present, also pulls together data points, and then does some like individual problem solving or conversation with our provider partners as well. That all culminates into our Monday meetings with the community. So we spend time together just kind of stressing like where we're at in the process, why this is important work that we're doing, how we're going to get through all of the resources that we have available. So really thinking about the method that we're using, how we're expediting resources, how we're removing barriers from our system to make sure that folks have the opportunity to be housed and to house more folks than we have before. And sometimes that takes the form of just a presentation. Sometimes that takes the form of breakout groups. Sometimes that takes the form of listening to people and just hearing out what they have to say about where we want to go. So there's a lot of different strategies in how we're doing that work. The status quo, right? I don't know that a surge should create a status quo of working at an expedited pace. I want to recognize that our providers are incredibly busy and have done amazing work over the past 2 years dealing with COVID, and that creates a lot of stress for all of us involved in that work, and especially people that are on the ground dealing with people experiencing homelessness and a public health crisis. And more and more folks that are seeming to enter our shelters and spaces. So we want to create solutions through our housing surge in order to have those be lasting solutions, but not necessarily say you have to continue to keep your pace of work at an exponential level throughout what we're doing.
I love that, Midori, and that's really what's the crux of the question as kind of the strategic points within the work that you've learned from the surge. All the great stuff that you've done to kind of expedite certain processes without breaking capacity, without overwhelming folks constantly, the steps that you're seeing that are really working well, that can be scaled to a day-to-day. And so you've answered my question. You are looking at those things that you can pull out and scale within your regular, and I'll use the term status quo process. So I appreciate that. And we look forward to kind of hearing how that integration is really escalating. So if it's within EIT, their process somehow gets a different view for outreach, or is it how information is going into HMIS through the dashboard and you're leveraging a little bit more transparency as to who's moving? Those are some of the ways in which I'm looking to see the best lessons learned from the surge and things that won't overwhelm our communities who are really doing this great work and who are doing it based on crisis focus, but are there parts of that focus through crisis that can be used on a regular. So I want to salute you, Midori and team, for all the work that you're doing. Let me look around the room. Sorry, Midori, please go.
I was just saying thank you.
Thanks, Midori. Let me look and see if other board members have questions. And Josh, I know that you have to drop at 11. Let's see if other board members have questions on the housing or houseless or homeless pillar within the 5-year plan. I see Myra's, your hand is up. I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. And I'm, thank you to everybody who's here, Denver staff, for all the work that you do. I was really happy to see in the presentation for the goals, that 4th goal for including a focus on families. Oftentimes in community, we field a lot of these calls, and it can be a little bit frustrating when you're trying to support family units as a whole, and a lot of services seem to be geared towards individuals, or we just don't know where to turn. And so I'm really happy to see that as a new focus. And as I was reviewing our 2022 action plan, that was the thought that kept coming up to my mind, was how do we support families? And so I'm really happy that that is something that came up from the community. I do have a quick question just in regards to how are we working collaboratively as a region? I saw this in the chat as well. I think it was about the dashboard, but how are we working collaboratively as a region to address homelessness? This GO bond that was approved is going to help tremendously, but how are we working with other cities and other areas and other agencies to make sure that we're tackling this issue holistically and as a whole group versus just the city of Denver, and where potentially our resources end at our borders?
Yes, thanks for that question, Myra. And certainly a focus, not just for my team, but I think across all of hosts, that we understand that, experiences of homelessness and housing instability don't respect our county borders, and that people in crisis will go wherever they're able to keep themselves and their families safe and to access what they need. And so a couple of things I can speak to. So one, by nature of having different divisions and a strategic plan kind of separated out by division focus, a lot of our regional work actually landed in our operations pillar of the strategic plan. And so we are deeply integrated and have lots of dotted lines and collaboratives, but want to mention that some of the specific strategies and goal language ended up over in the operations lane a bit more strongly than it did in the homelessness resolution lane. One of the big efforts that we're doing, which is a regional effort, is that Built for Zero work. So the work to first address veteran homelessness regionally, but then second, we're also deeply involved and invested. The Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, is a regional, it's actually a statewide system at this point. We're all using the same system across the entire state. And why that matters is that we're able to see and know that folks experiencing homelessness in Denver, we can see that they're also accessing a program in Jefferson County. We can start to understand some of that flow throughout the region, but we can also look at our data, our real-time data around the demographics and the number of folks experiencing homelessness throughout a given time frame, and understand what resources are they accessing, how many folks are flowing back into an experience of homelessness after previous housed outcome. So those are the things we're working to try to understand more and to address. We're also tied in with the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, MDHI, which is our, it's called our Continuum of Care. So they are responsible to the federal government to coordinate services across the 7-county metro region. So from Boulder down to Douglas County, Arapahoe to Jeffco, and everything in between. And so we're at the table for many working groups, funder discussions. They also coordinate what's called the One Home Coordinated Entry System. So and we can drop the link to that in the chat if it's something you're not familiar with, but it's a strong, a collaborative effort across the entire region to try and make sure that when folks have an experience of homelessness, they're able to kind of give their information once, tell their story one time, complete an assessment tool, and then be matched to a housing resource that meets their needs, regardless of whether they presented in Denver, you know, with VOA, but the housing resource is going to be with Warren Village, or, you know, whatever those kind of operational silos that used to exist within our agencies, and having a system that was just all these disparate pieces. Now we have this regional way to intake folks who are experiencing a housing crisis, match them to the resource that's at the right level for the needs that they're presenting, and you know, connect them to a housed outcome. That all sounds extremely idealistic, and if it was just so simple, we'd have this all solved right now. The real challenge being around the number of resources, the number of housing resources we have to match to the number of people in need. But as I think I saw a little thing pop up in the chat, you know, Melanie Lewis Dickerson has been leading us in this work for many years through her team and colleagues at Community Solutions to help get the right system in place, so that whether we have one housing resource or 1,000 housing resources, we're applying it through a data-informed lens and prioritizing those with some of our highest vulnerabilities and needs to impact the issue. So I can stop talking and see if Melanie, you have anything you want to add about our regional work. But Myra, also happy if you have any follow-up questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Angie, for offering that time. I'll just add, I was just sitting here thinking about how far we've come over the last certainly decade, but work that goes on longer than that, of working together as a region, and just want to really appreciate host's role in making that happen. The really deep partnership that I get to see on a regular basis between host and the folks over at MDHI, and really has helped activate in the last year to 18 months leaders across the entire region. So through the Built for Zero work and kind of the example, here in Denver, we have little teams in all parts of the 7-county metro area now that are, working in the same way and trying to achieve the same goals. And over the course of last year, we were able to see collectively a 15% reduction in veteran homelessness across the region, even as we think that numbers of other populations were going up. And so I think just a lot of early promise in this approach to regional collaboration, activating our elected officials behind this work, and host has been such a huge, huge part of that, which is very appreciated.
Melanie, thank you so much for your leadership, not just on the HSA board, but your focus on the regionalized approach, your support with MDHI, and explaining to me and other board members how HMIS works and all the other acronyms that we deal with. Your leadership is so necessary in this discussion. And Angie, thank you for elevating Melanie's voice. And Chris, thank you for calling her out. And Angie, I see a comment I don't know if you had an additional comment you would like to make to the public, and then I'll turn it over to other board members for any questions.
I think just seeing Kristen's name up on my screen, I was like, and of course, the Division of Local Affairs within the state's Division of Housing and the work of the Office of Homeless Initiatives that Kristen Toombs leads. And, we're engaged in some conversations right now about, the investment of American Rescue Plan Act dollars and partnerships with the Healthcare Policy and Financing Group to serve those with high medical needs. And so I think just to mention that we really, as a city alone, we cannot solve this. We can't have enough special tax funds and general fund budget that's going to meet this need that's so present in our community. And so just super grateful for partners across the region, yes, but also that leadership at the state that recognizes the central role that Denver plays in meeting these needs in the community, and helps us to identify new and innovative resources to connect more folks to housing.
Thank you, Angie. And Myra, I wanted to see, did you have a follow-up, or did that answer and response provide you the information you needed? And Kristen, I'll come to you next.
Yes, no, that was great. I don't have a follow-up, but I do have a different question, and we could come around to me after folks ask their questions, because it's not related to the region, but more so to resources.
So let me check in with Kristen. I think that's where she's going, Myra, and then I'll come back to you if you don't mind. So Kristen, I apologize for stepping on you. Please go forward.
No, not at all. I just want to say that, yes, the appreciation is mutual, and the excitement. We have a lot of great people at the table. I think there's a lot of wonderful momentum and coordination, more than I've seen in the only 7 years that I've been here, but it's just really exciting to see through HASA, through other local groups, but then Built for Zero. I mean, there's just so many different initiatives, but they're not disparate. Like, we are coordinating them together. And I think there's a lot of power in that. Chris Connor, I love your little rhyming there. That's hilarious. I'm not that clever, so appreciate it on a Friday. But I will say, yes, we have a lot of exciting opportunity here. And I think there are a lot of different discussions happening, and we're all working hard to make sure they're cohesive and coordinated around the opportunities with state funds coming. I mean, no community, Denver really has stepped it up with local funds coming in and investment, but no community can just do it, as Angie said. And same, the state, we might have a vision or a thought on what works, but if it's not what you all want in Denver, or it's not going to the same projects, or our timing is off, it's not going to work. And so this partnership is really important. And we just appreciate how Denver brings us to the table, wants us at the table. We love being at the table. And we really do look at how we can support you as best we can. And I think Denver does a really good job with numbers and plans and vision, communicating that plan. Then we know how we can help and step in and when. Sometimes it just comes down to the specifics and the logistics, and that's just how to get it done. So just know that we're at the table. We're honored to be here and excited to see what Denver does. And I will say, this is a statewide problem, and we do need to be at the table. It's really important to see each community take a lead, but people move around. We're dynamic, especially when we don't have stable housing. And so we as a state need to be here to help think through that regional and statewide approach. So glad to be here, and the appreciation goes both ways.
Thanks, Kristen, and I'm so glad you stopped driving while making that comment.
Yeah, I'm pulled over now. I'm in a parking spot right now.
I see that, so we appreciate that because we care about you and we want to make sure you're safe.
Thanks.
Myra, please, if you have another question and a follow-up, I'll love to bring you back into the room, and then I'll walk around to the other board members as well.
Thank you. This question came up when we're, as I'm thinking about resources. A lot of what we talk about is that housing first approach, where we bring in a lot of mental health support, healthcare support, and having just spent a week with national leaders talking about economic development, wondering if there are financial capability, education, and resource opportunities. I saw in one of our phases and strategies and progress notes from the action plan, I think it's like page 29 and 23, we talk about supporting individuals to either maintain their income, increase their income through various different opportunities like apprenticeships. But I'm wondering if financial capability, education and services, teaching people how to secure their income, maintain their income and wealth and start to build that. I wonder if there's an opportunity to start to begin to integrate those, especially if we already have partnerships with our Office of Economic Development.
Yes, so some of you may know, you may not know, my background in this work is that I ran programs for many years with Denver Rescue Mission and with Warren Village to provide case management for families and individuals experiencing homelessness and a path towards housing. And we know through that work that obviously the most critical thing to resolving episodes of homelessness is a home, is access to safe, affordable housing that's accessible to you and your income level. But kind of tied into that, it was sort of, we always talked about like a three-legged stool, right? Like there's the opportunity to a housing resource, there's the support services that you need to address whatever challenges you're facing as an individual. For some folks, the critical need is around childcare or early childhood education and intervention. For others, it's a mental health support. For others, it's a substance use resource. For others, it's just, confidence and self-esteem building through the trauma of an experience of homelessness. But that kind of third pillar of that three-legged stool is around income, employment, whether you're seeking benefits through Social Security, disability income, old age pension, Social Security benefits, or you're getting back to work, you need to be able to have a stable, steady income that's sufficient to meet your needs. And so there are a few partnerships that we have that we're integrated in with pretty well. So one is around Denver Human Services and the work that they do through their temporary aid to needy families and their workforce programs to help serve those who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness in building their tools around income and benefits. And then there's also the Office of Financial Empowerment within the city of Denver, which does incredible work helping folks to understand, more of those tools that you were speaking to around addressing debt, providing the resources to help negotiate down debt and improve credit, to also start to think about your kind of wealth, which is an interesting concept to think about when you've been experiencing poverty for so long, to think about, well, where do I have resources and how can I maintain those and use those most effectively for myself, for my household. Each of our homeless service provider programs also have a focus on this within their programming, in terms of those programs that are housing and support services. So most of our shelters have work that's supporting around acquiring employment opportunities, we have partnerships with Denver Human Services where they're able to come in and help do benefits applications with folks. So just want to recognize this is a key piece. It's written through our strategic plan, the strategies of connection in with Department of Economic Development and Opportunity, as well as Human Services, as our primary leaders in this space. And then second, that I think all of our human service providers are really deeply involved in, our homeless service providers, are deeply involved in helping to meet this need that folks have. And here at Host, we do have a contract, a partnership with Bayot Enterprises that supports it's called a supported employment program, but Denver Day Works. So providing direct employment opportunities with the city of Denver for folks who are currently experiencing homelessness. And I'm not monitoring the chat, but I keep getting these notifications. So I see Chris has been putting some links in the chat as well to some of those different organizations.
Angie, thank you so much for that information. And And Chris, if you wanted to elevate your voice into the room, that's great. I just want to do one quick add-on and ask Angie and also Chris or anyone on the leadership team, does daily basic income play a role in the work that you're doing? Are you considering collaborations? Can you elaborate some on that if that is something that's occurring?
Yes, what a great tee up. Thanks for that question, because I should talk about it too. And Sabrina, maybe from our comms view, you have some key points you want to mention, but we are, one of our strategies outlined in the strategic plan was that we wanted to look at basic cash assistance, a basic income pilot as a tool for helping to resolve homelessness. And the timing has been such that the Denver Basic Income Project is getting ready to gear up. And so we're actually looking around partnership with them and having conversations with them about what could that look like for us to partner and help to potentially bring this as a solution. We've seen it working well in other communities. We know that it's been successful in helping folks to meet their needs and leaning on the resilience of people to address their own needs. At its heart, we know an experience of homelessness is not a personal, individual moral failing, but a failure of our system, a failure of our community in providing the right types of housing at levels that people can afford. And so, we see basic income as a tool in that toolbox to help increase folks' income to be able to meet their needs. So that's something we're exploring, something we're interested in digging into more deeply. And Sabrina, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
I was just going to add that, yeah, we've been exploring basic income as a concept in general and have done our policy team has done a lot of really great research, Jennifer Bice and Polly Kyle, on what's worked and what hasn't worked in other places. And so we've been doing some digging to see if, doing our own thing might work better than working with Denver Basic Income Project. And so we're really exploring like all of the different opportunities and talking with them directly on that. So we'll keep you informed as next steps are ready to proceed.
That's excellent, Sabrina and Angie. And I would ask of staff when available, if you could share some, because I'm not assuming that every board member is familiar with the daily basic income, the initiative that currently exists, and then obviously any iterations from host, how you scale it, how you build on it, how you collaborate, I think will be helpful. And Myra, thank you so much for teeing that up, because after 30 years of being in financial services and being a data freak, I do appreciate and understand the importance of financial literacy and that intersection when it comes to our houseless and those who are struggling with housing instability. We have about 8 more minutes, board members. Any final questions for Angie and her team that are working on this? And then Chris, I know you've said a lot in chat. I do want to make sure you know there's space for you to come into the room and make any statements you have. I see quickest hands are up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I have the special ability to be on this the Strategic Advisors Board. I was also on the previous iteration before Housing Instability Department was created. And I just really, really, really appreciate all of the thoughtfulness and hard work that has gone into the creation of your department, the hard work that comes in and, bringing an entire community together to try to find out what its needs truly are and how to get there. And I appreciate all of the metrics and the goals. I do just want to ask, like, what is the mechanisms that are in place? Because I know that racial equity was talked about quite often through as being kind of the overarching pillar of all of your work. What mechanisms are in place to ensure that partners and community groups that are working under these pillars, that those racial equity numbers are being met?
Yes, thank you for that question, Kwika. Also want to say thank you for rolling down your window and shouting "Angie" to me when you drove past me the other day while I was walking back from the doctor's office. I loved that. But yes, so I think we have a few key things that we're working on this year. So in our work around homelessness resolution in particular, we've worked to integrate a race equity assessment into all of our procurements. So when we have folks apply for funding with the Department of Housing and Stability, we're asking them to take a look at their own agency and describe for us where they're at in terms of representation of the folks being served in their programs, being reflected at various levels of their organization. So not just frontline staff, but middle management, executive management, and the board. And so we see this as an iterative process where the first step to change is really self-awareness and understanding, you know, how are we doing in this? HOST also does our own internal equity survey annually to try and understand how are we doing in representing the community that we serve. And then second, we've also started integrating these questions around race, equity, and representation. So looking at, and I'm sorry, I should step back to say, through our HMIS data entry standards, every program set up under HOST also has an expectation of tracking demographic information of those folks served in order to make sure that we're understanding, is there equitable outcomes? So if we're housing, you know, if the program is serving 100 people and 50 of those are Black, you know, we would expect that our housed outcomes also show a 50% outcomes to folks who are Black. And so part of the housing surge every week is rooting ourselves in the data, looking at equity as we look at the outcomes we're achieving to ensure that we aren't seeing disparate impacts for certain populations. So that's a strategy. And then two, I was starting to speak to our monitoring as we go out and conduct site visits with those programs that we fund, speaking not just about, are you meeting your outcomes, are you achieving your benchmarks, but are those outcomes racially equitable? And so we know that this is in many ways a new conversation for our community and something that hasn't been explicitly looked at or something that we were holding the community accountable to. So that's a way that we're working to bring the conversation forward and ensure that we're engaging folks and having it on their radar. And then secondly, as a division, it's part of our goals that this year we're identifying more concrete actions that we can take through each of our strategic plan and action plan items to try and set specific metrics and specific activities that are going to move the needle on racial equity. It's proven to be a little bit more of a sticky widget for our homelessness resolution strategies for whatever reason. And so just recognizing that we have less specificity in the homelessness resolution space right now and have more that we need to do to identify actionable ways that we're going to improve equity in that system.
Thank you so much, Angie. And Kuika, any additional questions or comments for Angie and team on equity? And thank you for bringing that forward. And it's extremely important. It flows throughout the action plans as well as the 5-year strategic plan. I think it's always important to have that as top of mind. So Kuika, any additional comments, questions on that?
Yeah, no questions. I just wanted to say thank you. It's nice to hear those well thought out mechanisms being looked at throughout this journey. So thank you.
And leaders, we have 2 minutes. And so I had 2 housekeeping pieces. So Katie, I know you caught this. We did have absolutely quorum. We have 2 excused absences. And I know I believe you have that listed for the minutes. And so I want to thank each of the board members for attending and for coming on to ensure that we had a quorum for today's meeting. Our next meeting is 10 to 11:30, Friday, May 20th. Question to Sabrina and the communications team. I know that the City and County of Denver normally has land acknowledgements to begin each of their meetings, just really not only teeing off of Kuika's point of view, but really the focus of this board. We would like to begin next month our meetings with a land acknowledgement. I would like to ask Sabrina if your team would be willing to discuss, communicate if we should incorporate what the other city agencies leverage when they start their meetings. So that's a offline discussion, but I at least wanted to bring that into the room because that question has come up as far as whether HSA will have a line acknowledgement for beginning their meetings. It is our intention to do so, and we do need your support and leadership on that. Any final statements from host staff or questions that we have that are outstanding outside of the next meeting time and place? And if not, we will adjourn. So Sabrina, I'll turn it to you for any final questions or comments.
No, but thank you for bringing that up, Daryl. That's a great catch, and we will get that so that we can do it going forward.
Thanks, Sabrina. Thank you, leaders. For those who celebrate, please enjoy, have a blessed Passover, and we look forward to seeing you in 30 days. Take care.
Thanks, Daryl.